Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Sportslook, the sports television program for the High Plains of West Texas and Eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and just like Kelly Clarkson on The Voice, we decided to skip an episode, but we're back this week, and we're glad that we are because we're going to be completely student-oriented. We're going to have Qiqi and Scott, the stars of High School Spotlight. We're going to have our lone senior associated with Sportslook, Clare Moots. I'll finish up with an overtime, but as always, I'll start out with an Eastern recap. Greyhound baseball finished up the season last weekend with 3 games against Texas A&M Kingsville. They didn't win any of those games, but they were competitive, and this season they won 3 times as many games as they won last year. Greyhound softball played a game on Wednesday this week against St. Mary's, lost 3-1. They will finish up their season with a doubleheader against St. Edward's tomorrow. Greyhound track and field competed in the Corky Crowfoot shootout at Texas Tech. Best finisher, Jessica Campbell, who finished second in the javelin. And while Greyhound rodeo may be done for the year as a team sport, Madeline Shower and Shacey Marr and Trey Jackson are all still roping and riding because they have all qualified for the college national finals rodeo. Well, that has been our Eastern recap, so we'll clear this out and I'll bring in Qiqi and Scott right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and a privilege to bring to the set of Sportslook the stars of High School Spotlight. We've got Kitana Sapinga, we've got Scott Haas. Welcome to Sportslook.
Thanks for having us.
Well, Kitana, we'll start out with you. Where are you from originally, and what was the process that got you to Eastern New Mexico University?
So I'm actually from Southern California, born and raised, and I played volleyball my entire life. And so what brought me to Eastern is I received an athletic scholarship to play on the volleyball team, so that's why I'm here.
And Scott will ask you the same question.
I'm sorry, may I ask what the question was?
Sure, where are you from and what was the process that got you to Eastern?
Okay, so I was born in Phoenix, but we moved around quite a bit to different spots in New Mexico, where we eventually stayed in Roswell until I graduated. And my original plan was to not go to college and just become a carpenter, but my mom gave me an ultimatum, and so we're here.
Moms know best.
Right.
And I guess it's appropriate because Mother's Day is on Sunday,
Yes.
so
Yes,
perfect timing for that. Kitana, obviously you're involved in broadcasting now. Did you come here with the express purpose of being a comm major?
Yes, so I pretty much knew in high school that this is what I wanted to do. I just remember having a senior project. It was on what your career wanted to be, and I struggled with what I wanted to be, but watching like Ellen DeGeneres and broadcasters like that's what inspired me, so that's what I want to do.
And Scott, how about you? What was the process that got you into comm?
So it's a fun story, actually. So what happened was I came here in 2017 as a business major, and I got straight A's, and I was like, or for my first semester, and I was like, oh, I can become a doctor, why not? So I signed up for the pre-med major, and we ended up failing. So I dropped out, took a year off of class, and then I came back and decided to do comm. And I just thought it would be really interesting because like I've always wanted to be on TV and have a platform to express my views and opinions. And I mostly just want to talk about sports.
There you go. Well, Kitana will ask you, and we're getting a little more specific as we go along. Start out with general questions and move to the specific. So what was the process that got you involved with Sportslook?
I mean, when I registered for classes, there was the talk of, oh, you need to take this broadcast practicum. I had no idea what a practicum was till I showed up the first day here in the set, and I actually saw you and other professors. And so that's when I started everything, and then come to find out we have this thing called Sportslook. I did my research, I watched one of the episodes, and I said that's what I wanted to do. And so they held auditions, and I was lucky enough to have gotten the spot as one of the co-hosts.
And Scott, same question for you. What was the process that got you specifically to Sportslook?
It was a pretty similar story as Qiqi's. I came to the practicum on that first day, and Alan had mentioned that we were not going to be doing High School Spotlight, and I was like, oh, well, I wonder what that is. And then I found out it's about like high school sports, and I thought, I would really like to start and like put my foot in the door with that. And we had our audition, and we killed it.
Yeah.
And that was going to be my next question, is that what was the audition process like to become the host of High School Spotlight?
So we basically showed up here on this same set, and there were scripts that were written for us. They basically said, get in front of the camera and read the scripts. And so Scott and I did it. We had to get loose at first. Our first go was definitely rough, but I think Scott and I have pretty good chemistry on camera and stuff, and our flow was really nice. And so, yeah.
And Scott, I'll ask you a slightly different question. So looking at High School Spotlight, what was the one thing you thought going in that proved to be true about High School Spotlight? What was the biggest surprise about actually doing High School Spotlight?
So I will start with the biggest surprise. I will say the biggest surprise was that we actually film our own games. We have to go out and shoot our own games. So like my first game was a football game, and I was unaware that we had to run along the sidelines, and I was not wearing proper shoes at all.
Interesting. Okay, so Katana, I'll ask you the same question. So what was your kind of aha moment with Sportslook?
The same exact answer. Yeah, but don't get us wrong. Like, we love shooting. Honestly, we don't mind it. It's helped me learn more about the sports that I'm studying and just learn more about more behind the camera stuff, because I would say my focus is I want to be an on-camera talent. But going out and shooting has taught me that there's a lot of things I need to know behind the camera.
It helps. It definitely knows when you appreciate what the people are doing.
Yes, most definitely.
So Scott, I'll ask you, looking at all of the contests that you've covered for High School Spotlight this year, what was a memorable contest?
That's funny you ask that, because we were actually talking about this yesterday.
Yeah.
We got to go shoot a game yesterday in Fort Sumner, and it was Fort Sumner girls basketball versus the Melrose basketball team, and it was a very insane game. I believe Melrose won by 1, and there were so many last shots that just could have hit, but they didn't. And I think that was probably the most memorable because of the crowd noise.
Oh, definitely.
And same answer for you?
I'd agree. The place we sat at as well was right in basically where the fans were, and so it was just fun. The energy in the gym was crazy.
And so looking back at the sports that you have covered, did you really feel confident going in, or was it kind of like, okay, I'm learning this sport as I'm going along?
Definitely. I mean, of course, with volleyball, I had that one. I told Scott, I was like, I can write the script myself. I got this. But with basketball, I'm still learning the terminology, still learning the game. But like I was saying earlier, going out and shooting basketball has really taught me a lot about the sport.
And Scott, I'll just take yes, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would assume probably for you it might have been the other way around, that you knew a little more about basketball and volleyball was the learning experience.
Yes, sir, exactly. You know, like I came in, I was like, you know, I'm excited to write scripts for football, basketball, maybe even baseball. But once we got that volleyball game, I was like, I don't know what they're doing. You know, I don't know any of the terms. And then Qiqi saved the day and printed out a really good script.
So, Qiqi, looking at your experience here at Eastern New Mexico University, obviously the people in the comm department have been very instrumental in helping you become who you are. But looking at the other professors, looking at the people that taught gen ed classes, what was the really surprisingly good gen ed class that you had?
I would say English, actually. My writing, I had a professor, she was very particular in the writing. She had a list of words that we weren't allowed to use, and that's been embedded in my head so much that when I write my own scripts and when I write stuff with Scott for Spotlight, I'm constantly going over that list in my head. And so I would say writing is definitely the gen ed that has helped me with what I'm doing.
If you don't mind my asking, so what are the proscribed words that you were not allowed to use?
Okay, so one of them is really, pretty, like, and I think the other one's as.
Okay.
And so, because I mean, really is a pretty common used word, so it's understandable why that's on the list.
Interesting. All right, Scott, I'll ask you the same question. What was the surprisingly good class that wasn't a part of your major?
That is a really good question. I would probably say psychology, or not philosophy, not psychology. What's the other one?
Sociology?
Sociology,
There you go.
yes, sir. I really like learning about how the brain works and how people work in society. And I feel like it'll help, like it helps me better understand, like, you know, how people work, and like, I'm spacing. I'm sorry.
No, I understand completely where you're going with that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Just to connect, be a people person more.
And obviously, within the comm department, there are professors who teach specific classes, but a person who teaches you real life lessons is the guy that's the executive producer for Sportslook. And what can you say about Alan and what he's done for you?
I really just appreciate the fact that he emphasizes there's always more to learn. So even when you think you know it all, there's always one extra thing you can learn. And so I'm constantly learning new things behind the camera, on the camera stuff that I don't even think about or that I don't think matters. And so.
And Scott, I'll ask you the same question. What has Alan done for you?
Pretty similar story to Qiqi's. You know, he's helped me out quite a bit. He's gotten on to me about learning new weather terms or learning the geography of New Mexico, so I can say like it'll be cloudy over the high plains or something like that. So I'm appreciative for that.
Interesting. Qiqi, we have quite a few individuals that work on Sportslook. How many of them did you know before you actually started to work on Sportslook?
0. Yeah, I pretty much came here first day, didn't know anyone. And I mean, this is the communications major, so you could imagine everyone here is pretty talkative. So we walk in the first day, everyone's asking, what's your name? Where are you from? All this stuff. So I didn't know anyone coming in, but now I could say these are all of my friends, I guess.
Absolutely. Scott, same question for you. How many of these people did you know before you started doing Sportslook?
Honestly, none. Yeah, I don't believe any. Qiqi is honestly like one of the only people I know, at least from last semester.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, well, let's look down the road. And if you had your dream job, what would your dream job in broadcasting be?
Definitely an ESPN sideline reporter, desk reporter, kind of like Scott. I really just want to get into sports. I want to be up there with athletes, interviewing them, going over games, stuff like that. So kind of similar to what we do in High School Spotlight, going over game highlights, but I really want to get pretty intimate with athletes, one-on-one type of stuff.
And Scott, I'll ask you the same question. If you had your druthers, to use an old-time archaic term, what would you like to be doing with your broadcast career?
I know I'm going to sound very repetitive, but pretty much the same story as Qiqi. You know, I would love to be an anchor at ESPN or like work for SportsCenter, become intimate with the athletes and be able to like, I don't know, maybe hang out with one as homies or as friends, sorry.
No, that's fine. Homies is perfectly acceptable here on this set of Sportslook. Well, Katana, it's going to be difficult to sum this up in the amount of time we've got left, but if you can, what's going to be your fondest memory about Eastern? Is it going to be a sporting activity? Is it going to be something involved with broadcasting? What's going to be your takeaway moment?
I mean, I've only been here for 2 years, but as of right now, I think it'd be this interview, Doc. This has been great.
You're too kind. So, Scott, for you as well, what do you think your takeaway is going to be from Eastern?
I think my takeaway is like, it's coming into the department, I was definitely kind of shy and not very talkative, but I feel like being in front of the camera really like, you're thrown to the wolves. Like you got to learn how to talk if you're going to be on the screen. And like, that is the dream that I want. And yeah.
All right, well, that is going to wrap up our first interview segment. So what we'll do is we're going to clear the set and we're going to bring in our lone senior from Sportslook this year, Clare Moots. We'll do that right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and I'm kind of happy and I'm kind of sad. I'm happy that we get to bring Clare Moots to the set, but I'm kind of sad because we're bringing you to the set because you're a senior and you're going to be graduating. But welcome to Sportslook.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Clare, we'll start out where are you from and what was the process that got you to Eastern New Mexico University?
So I'm from, well, born and raised Rio Rancho, New Mexico. It's right outside of Albuquerque, for anybody that doesn't know. But I honestly didn't know where I was going to go to college. And it was really between New Mexico State and Eastern because I wanted to get out of my house. You know, I was like ready to live on my own. And I visited both campuses and I just fell in love with Eastern's campus. It was so beautiful. And I don't know, my dad came here too, and like all my aunts came here, and it just seemed like the comfortable choice at the time, and it was also cheaper. So, but I've loved every second here, so I'm glad I chose Eastern.
When you came here, did you already know that you wanted to be a comm major, or was this a major that you developed while you were a student here at Eastern?
So when I first came here, I wanted to do biology. Yeah, and I started taking some classes, and I was actually in a class with Dr. Molly, and she's a great teacher, so smart, but I couldn't keep up and I didn't love it, and I barely passed the class, honestly, and that's like the only like low grade that I've gotten here. And I took a comm class, and they were advertising the tryouts for news, and I said, I'll go give it a look. And so I came and I loved it, and so I ended up volunteering to work at the station, and then I ended up switching my major. So then I became a comm major, and I've been here since. So.
Well, Claire, I'm curious, what were you going to do with your biology degree?
I don't know. I've always loved animals, and so I was like, maybe I could be like a vet or like wildlife. I love like hiking and stuff, and so I thought maybe I could do something along those lines, but it didn't work out that way. So.
Gotcha. Well, we're glad that from a personal standpoint that you came to Sportslook and came to the comm department.
Yeah.
People who watch afternoon news will probably already know this, but Sportslook not the only program on K&W you've been associated with.
Yeah, I've worked behind the scenes a lot with news. I started anchoring last year, but then the pandemic hit, and so I haven't been anchoring since. I do news breaks on Mondays, but I love doing stuff behind the scenes like camera work and shooting packages, and I really love that.
So let's take a look at the actual major that you've been doing. What are the classes and who are the instructors that really stand out as having been beneficial to you?
I probably would say that my favorite instructor that I've had is Mr. Caffrey. I just love his classes. Like, he makes everything so interesting, and he tells like a lot of life experience stories. So I kind of get more of an idea of like what to be prepared for in the future. And I remember my first class with him, he made us take spelling tests, and I hadn't taken one of those since middle school. And man, like, it made me realize that I definitely need to brush up on my vocabulary. So, but it's things like that that I really like about him. So.
Okay, so I got to ask a question about Ed. Is he a big Kansas City Chiefs fan as his wife is?
Yeah, he always talks about like being from Missouri and stuff. So.
I wondered about that. In terms of advice that you've been given in broadcasting, who gave you the best advice so far in your career?
Well, I would probably say Alan Crawford. He's very straight up, and he'll tell you how it is. He doesn't sugarcoat anything, and I really like that about him, because like, you can't be babied when you get into the real world. So.
Nope.
Yeah.
It's a hardball world out there, as the expression goes. Okay, so now I'm curious, what was the process that got you from News 3 New Mexico to being associated with Sportslook?
Well, sometimes they need the extra help, and I love sports, and so it wasn't really hard to get me over here when they like needed the extra help. So.
What was your association with sports growing up?
Oh, I played lots of sports growing up. I ran track, I played soccer, basketball since I was little. All through high school, I did track and I played basketball, and then my senior year I did soccer. So I've been in the sports world myself. So. Yeah.
What events did you do in track?
My main events were the 300 hurdles. I did high jump, javelin, and I also ran on some relay teams. So
That's pretty eclectic.
Yeah, it was fun. I definitely miss it, but I'm glad that I've decided to focus on my studies, because I think in high school, I was so wrapped up in athletics that like my studies were like almost a second priority, which wasn't good. And like here, I've just been able to like get involved in so much more like academically, and I love it. So.
I was just going to ask you whether you regretted not trying out for track here at Eastern, but I think you've already answered that.
I kind of did it first. My freshman year, I thought about it a lot, but I think overall I'm very happy with my decision, and I can always go and run and join a gym or any kind of program. And I actually really want to start like training to do like triathlons once everything starts opening up. So
Good for you.
yeah,
I have enough trouble just forcing myself to go out and run a couple miles every day.
really.
In terms of watching sports, in terms of like seeing what we put together in Sportslook, in terms of high school spotlights, what's your favorite sport to watch?
I think I'm a little bit biased because my boyfriend played football here for the past, well, he graduated last semester and I loved like going out and watching our team play and I got like pretty invested in that. But I also love watching track and I love like seeing the meets and I love it when there's like a race that happens, especially like the longer distance ones and there's like comebacks, like people from the back getting the front. It's like such a rush and it like reminds me of like when I was running. So yeah.
Well, Claire, we talked about the fact that you are a senior and you'll be leaving Sportslook. What's going to be your fondest memory about Sportslook that you're going to be taking away?
About Sportslook, I love like meeting the guests and like hearing what they have to say. But Sportslook is the only show really that we use the jib, and I thought it was like really fun learning how to use that. And I hope like in the future maybe that skill will be beneficial towards me. So.
And let's take a look at News 3 New Mexico. What was your favorite News 3 New Mexico moment?
Gosh, I just like love my coworkers, and so just getting to work with like Landry and Marilyn and Brianna like every day, I'm really gonna miss that because we've just become so close and like we work so well together, and it'll just be like every day like being able to come to work and like seeing them. So.
And I was just gonna, you could be a mind reader. You could do psychic readings as a sideline because I was gonna ask you about the process of making friends here and the broadcast journalism major.
Yeah, well, you spend a lot of time with these people, so you get to know them, and you work on different stories, and like you get to see like a lot of things depending on like what you're working on, and so you really get to know people and like their beliefs. And I've gotten into like church groups with them and like outside activities, and it's been really great.
So what's in the future for you?
I'm honestly trying to figure that out myself. I think I'm gonna move to Arizona, and there's like a couple different things I'm kind of thinking about. I don't know if I'm gonna jump straight into news, but I kind of want to explore my options because I feel like I'm young and I want to do something that I love. I don't want to just get into something that I don't enjoy going to do every day. So, yeah.
What's the lure of Arizona?
Well, I have family there, and my boyfriend's also there. We've been together for like 3 years, so.
That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
That's why my older son lives in Arizona, and
Oh,
that's
really?
what got him there.
Yeah, but we'll see. It's hot, so, and I have to put a lot of sunscreen on, so, yeah.
But fortunately, virtually everywhere you go in that area is air conditioned. So
Yeah, hopefully.
you don't have to be hot for very long.
Yeah.
So looking at Eastern New Mexico University, obviously calm moments would be significant for you. But was there something that happened here at Eastern that was like unexpectedly a good memory that you're going to take, like a comedian that appeared or a show that Eastern put on or an activity?
I'm trying to think about that. There's like not really anything like that. I really would just say like my experiences like with people that I've met probably, just, you know.
And unfortunately, because of the pandemic,
Yeah.
I mean, the opportunities for those shows and comedians
Yeah.
coming were a little more limited for you.
Well, actually, there's this one time where this magician came, and I just don't believe in magic at all, and he called me up on stage, and I still didn't believe it, even though he like guessed the number I was thinking, but I feel like there's some kind of like method to it.
Interesting.
So. Yeah.
Okay. If you had to give advice to young people that are watching this and wondering how they could become Clare Moots, how they could one day be a person who has unlimited potential, what advice would you give young people?
I would say take advantage of everything that you can, especially here at the station, because there's just so many things you can do, and I don't think that people like take advantage of it enough because we have so much equipment and there's so much knowledge in this building, like Mr. Ryan and Alan and James and Desiree, and they just have so much to offer. And like if pick up a camera and go shoot and just get out there because all that equipment is there and not all these schools in New Mexico or even in the nation like offer that. And I just feel really blessed to like have those opportunities, and I hope that the future generations and kids that come in take advantage of that. So.
Well, Claire, it's been a pleasure getting to know you, and we wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you.
All right, well, that is going to wrap up the interview segment of Sportslook, so I'll finish up with an overtime one last time right now. As the 2021 sports season comes to an end, I've had a number of people that have asked me, they've said, Doc, how is a sport like Greyhound football going to recover from the fact that they lost an entire year of competition? To those people, I respond by saying, well, let's take a look at history. Let's take a look at Greyhound football back during the 1940s. And if you look at the 1940s, you'll see that Greyhound football competed in 1941, but didn't play a single game in 1942. They didn't play a single game in 1943. They didn't play a single game in 1944. And those of you who know your history probably have guessed why. World War II took away most of the young men that would have played football for Eastern New Mexico University. So 3 years went by without a Greyhound football game. But in 1945, 2 weeks after the Second World War came to a close, Greyhound football was back out on the field. So while I cannot predict with absolute certainty what's going to happen, I feel fairly confident in saying Greyhound football and all of the sports that didn't get to compete this year will be just fine next year. Well, that is going to wrap up an overtime, and that will wrap up a sports look, and that will wrap up Sports Look for 2021. I'd like to thank everybody who is a guest. I'd like to thank everybody who is part of my floor crew. Tonight I had a young man by the name of Andres who is my floor director. So for all those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.
Oh, geez, okay, right into it.
Wait, what am I?
Another highly anticipated matchup between the Foxes
Yeah.
and who are the Vixens and
I'll just say it was a.
just go with the flow.
I'm just gonna say whatever comes
All right,
out.
cool. All right, you ready?
Yes.
Be like both teams battled out in this winner go home matchup. One team came out on top. Something like that.
Okay.
You got it? Kind of?